Glad to have your company on another episode of SPL Express. I'm Abhishek Ravikrishnan, and I'm delighted to be joined by former professional player Rhysh, Roshan as we look ahead to Matchweek 14 in the Singapore Premier League, which means we're about halfway done with the season. Now, before we look ahead, let's recap what happened over the weekend. And it started with Albrecht Niigata, not for the first time, thrashing Balestier at home 6-2, ending the Tigers' 3-game win streak. Geylang International returned to winning ways after beating Young Lions 2-0. Hougang United finding some form, stringing back-to-back wins for the first time this season, following their win over Tanjong Pagar United. While a Boris Kapitovic goal was the difference between Tampines Rovers and a 10-man Brunei DPMM side on Sunday. And that means Tampines remain top of the table ahead of defending champions Albrechts, who do have that game in hand. Geylang International are now within 2 points of the top half of the table, and Hougang are now within touching distance of Tanjong Pagar and Brunei DPMM in 6th and 7th respectively. So here's what's coming up this week. Just 2 matches. Balestier and Lion City Sailors do battle at the Bishan Stadium on Thursday evening, while Hougang United face Young Lions on Saturday. So let's start off with that first game. Balestier up against Lion City Sailors. One side who struggled defensively, another side who was so fluid in attack. Now, before we hear from you, Roshan, let's have a listen to Balestier assistant coach Razif Arif after his side's heavy defeat to Albrecht Niigata.
I think in this game, we have killed a bit of ourselves in terms of the passes that we passes are straight passes, and then we keep losing the possessions when we win back the ball as quickly as possible. But I think having said that, also in terms of how we defend ourselves today, I think we need to better our game craft in terms of defending.
So Razif there pointing out their defensive issues for Balestier. Roshan, he spoke about giving the ball away too easily. Do you think that's the problem, or as a unit when they defend? What do you think is the biggest problem for Balestier defensively?
They just don't look like a side who actually enjoy defensive work, and we've spoken about the defensive record a lot on this show throughout the weeks of the season, and they've got the worst defense in the league, right? That's on the table in terms of the goals conceded. But when you have a look at some of the goals that they've conceded, I think in the last game against Albrechts, just as an example, you see such poor compactness in the side. It's almost as if they are not quite sure what the structure is, what the order is, what the instructions are in terms of the pressing. Are they pressing together as a unit? Because what happens at times is you'll see the attacking line, the midfield line going forward and trying to step up, and then the defensive line is so far back. And then what happens is the opposition plays through that initial attack in the midfield line, and then they can attack the back line of Balestier. There's so many of these gaps that are being exploited, and I think again those goals that they conceded against Albrecht Niigata were the most recent example of just how much or how easy it is for opposition sides to get in and attack that Balestier defense. Players, of course, making individual errors, but you look at the attitude of the pressing as well. It's not enough just to be there, just to be close to the opposition. You actually have to play with intensity. And I don't see that defensive intensity in their game. Whether it's the attacking players helping out with their pressing, whether it's the defensive players trying to scramble and get the ball away, that is just not evident in their game overall.
Is that down to coaching though?
Yeah, it is. Part of it is down to coaching and getting that plan together and really sort of instructing the players and saying, we're going to press and we're going to go into this direction, or this particular player, I want him to be shut down. I don't know if there's that level of detail in it. Maybe there is, and the players are not following those instructions. Out on the pitch, of course, it's down to the players to then go and deliver, and they're not doing that. So it's something they've got to figure out. Is it a tactical thing where the coach is not being clear with what he wants his side to do? Is it the players not taking on board the instructions and not being able to play with that aggressiveness and that intensity? That's something that, again, I said they're going to have to sort of figure out and sort that out. But it just looks really disorganized on the defensive side of things. Attacking, as we've mentioned, no problem at all. They're very good. They enjoy attacking. But I feel like as a team unit, they don't work together well enough when they don't have the ball. If they want to press, then they need to be pressing together. There needs to be compactness between the lines. If they don't want to press, then sit back in your own half and also show that compactness. And then when you go together as a team. Otherwise, once your pressing line, when you're not prepared to press together properly, it's easy for the opposition to go and get around them.
You talk about the gaps, especially between midfield and defense. One player who's supposed to be there is Alan Koza. We've seen him for half a year now. What have you made of his impact on this Balestier team?
I don't think he's been as impactful as I think as he would like. I'm not sure what he provides really for Balestier Khalsa. I'm not saying that everything is his fault. Of course it's not. As I said, it's a team effort. And that whole team, defensively, they're a little bit all over the place. They're very disorganized. But there's certain situations in matches where you look at it and you think, hang on, he's not chasing back. He's not running back. And he's supposed to be there. When you bring foreign signings in, they're supposed to bring your team up another level. They're supposed to be a level above, at least a level above what the locals can provide. So I haven't seen that yet from Alan Koza. Whether it's an adjustment period and they're going to give him a bit more time to sort of settle, remains to be seen with the transfer window coming up. But yeah, so far I'm not quite sure what exactly it is he brings to Balestier Khalsa overall.
We talk about foreigners having quality. Well, in the opposition for Balestier, in Sailors, you talk about Diego Lopez and Maxime Lestier, and both of them, news coming out that their contracts are actually coming to an end this year. Do you see them staying in the SPL?
I would love to see them stay in the SPL. They're brilliant, and they are essentially carrying Lan City Sailors in an attacking sense. I fear for Balestier in this game, defensively with all the issues that they've had, the likes of Lestier and Lopez just look like they're going to be tearing them apart. A 3-0 win in the first meeting between these two sides. And especially on the right-hand side of Balestier Khalsa's defense, there's a lot of weakness there. And I've already mentioned the gaps between the lines, the lack of compactness, and how easy they played through. But going back to your question about Lestier and Lopez, yeah, special players. We'd love to see them stick around. And there are contract discussions about to be had. The thing is now that Lestier and Lopez know how important they are to the Lion City Sailors side, they've got the upper hand in that sense. Whether the Sailors can afford to keep them around is another thing. You know, we've seen from the Sailors scaling back in terms of the finances, scaling back in terms of certain departments. And that's something that whoever is in charge, whoever's responsible of sorting out these contracts has got to go and figure out in terms of the budgeting. If they aren't going to be staying, if they aren't going to be extending their contracts here, then they will really be missed in the league.
Well, for Sailors going into this game, it's a crucial clash because after this, they're playing Tampines Rovers next.
I think that's extra impetus for them to go on and win this game. And they're only 6 points behind Tampines now. They've got that game in hand, which they are going to be playing against Balestier. 3 points, a win here puts them just three behind Tampines Rovers, who are leading the league at the moment. And then the next game is against Tampines. So it really is a crucial couple of matches for them because they can go at the end of these two games, 2 match weeks, go level with Tampines Rovers on points at least. So I think they should be fired up for this one. They should be fired up and focused to get these 3 points. They'll put them on a nice platform to go on and then push Tampines in the following game.
Let's talk about the game. This week's second game. It's Hougang up against Young Lions. Both teams, they've occupied the bottom 2 spots for majority of the season.
Yeah.
How important is this clash for the two of them?
Really important, I think, especially for Hougang. I think for Young Lions, we know what the expectations are. We're not really expecting them to be challenging or be going up to mid-table. We know the issues that they've had, the lack of quality in that side. But for Hougang, it's been a disappointing season. And for them, I think it's important now to get these points on the board. And I said after the last game against Geylang that I thought they had a nice run of fixtures, and they do have a good run of fixtures. They beat Tanjung Pagar. Now they've got the Young Lions, which they should be beating, take a bit of revenge from the result in the first part of the season. And this is a game that I think they will go on to win because I think there's more confidence in the side now. They've got DPMM after this Young Lions game. But take this one, take the 3 points here. And also when you look at the table, they are second last, as you mentioned. But after those 2 match weeks as well, it could look very different. They could potentially move up to 5th on the standings, depending on how other things go. Or at least 6th after this game against the Young Lions if they take the 3 points here. And then suddenly the complexion changes. Suddenly you've had a run of wins, a string of wins together. And that takes that pressure off the players a bit more. It gives them a bit more confidence in and to go on and try and push on even more when the difficult challenges come.
You talk about confidence. Kiki Krajcek, who's hit some form recently,
yeah,
he spoke after their last game and he said the difference from the earlier part of the season to now playing under Marco, he makes them want to fight for their coach. You've played under Marco.
Yeah.
What do you think he's brought to this team or added to this Hougang side, which was missing?
Yeah, Krajcek is right. I mean, when Marco first took over, you asked me this question about Marco and what to expect, and I told you that he'd be a guy who's, willing to shout at you and scream at you and be very passionate about the game. But he also knows how to sort of keep things simple, and he's incredibly good in his man management. He knows how to crack a joke, and on training pitch, if he's not happy with you, he will let you know. But at the same time, you know that it's nothing personal. It's just about trying to make sure that you're able to do the job on the pitch, and players respond to that. I think it helps that he was a former player in the league. He's a very experienced coach. He knows what it takes to get results in this league, and he just gets it. You know, I feel like Marco is the kind of guy who just gets it and understands how to bring out the best in his players. I think he's also tweaked a few things tactically with this side. For one, Irwan is now playing in central midfield, giving a bit more protection to that back line.
We've seen him play in central midfield before.
We have, but sometimes he starts out on the left and then he drifts in, whereas for now, I think he's positioned there, and essentially he sort of patrols the spaces in that side of the pitch. He had to sort of readjust with Hazwan suspended in the last game, push Nazrul a little bit further forward. But I think when you look at some of the goals that they've scored in recent matches against Tanjung Pagar and against Geylang, the counter-attacking looks much better. They're quicker to get the ball forward, a little bit more direct now than I think in that slow sort of build-up style. And they try and exploit those spaces a lot quicker, which really suits Hougang. And to me, that's Hougang that I said they're at the best. When you looked at Gabriel Quack scoring that third goal against Tanjung Pagar, they went back to front quickly and exploited space in behind. When you look at them in the situation where they won the penalty, it went from back to front quickly, Krychek out on the left, and then a ball into the box, and that's how they're able to get a penalty from that situation. So to me, it feels like those are some of the changes that he's brought into this team tactically, and it's a bit of a refresh for this side as well. Krychek, as you mentioned, scoring goals, Gabriel Quack scoring goals as well, so it's looking good for Hougang at the moment.
So Hougang with a chance to make it 3 successive wins this weekend. They play the Young Lions, and that is the feature game of the week. Our coverage will begin at 5:30 p.m. with Colette Wong and Shashi Kumar live from our studio at Jalan Besar Stadium. So that's all the time we have for this week's episode of SPL Express. 2 games coming to you live on our SPL YouTube page. Enjoy the games, enjoy the long weekend. We will see you again soon.